The final chapter on JFK. Chapter 7, Segment 3, The Walking Rifle.
Thanks for tuning in. This segment is called The Walking Rifle. The Warren Commission claimed that the alleged assassination rifle, Warren Commission Exhibit 139, somehow got into the Texas School Book Depository on the morning of November 22nd, 1963, by Lee Harvey Oswald carrying it in. The claim was that he carried it in a paper bag, and the Warren Commission found the paper bag, and in fact, they actually found it right near the sniper's den up on the 6th floor, and that hid the weapon, supposedly from all witnesses that could have seen Oswald bringing a rifle into the Texas School Book Depository on that day. First major problem with that claim is that the wrapping paper that was found right at the scene, almost like dropped right by the window, was too small, and the alleged assassination rifle couldn't fit in the bag. And it couldn't fit in the bag even if the rifle had been taken apart and they just had the stock. So that was a difficulty that the Warren Commission had with that claim. But what made it even worse is that when they tested the bag right in the supposed assassination area, no fingerprints. None. Here's the testimony. So that's the first problem with the Warren Commission's claim. And then the second problem is the young man that drove Lee Harvey Oswald to the Texas School Book Depository that day to work, a guy by the name of Buell Frazier, testified that Oswald brought curtain rods in, and the curtain rods fit underneath Oswald's armpit, and he carried them by cupping them in his hand. Interestingly enough, Lee Harvey Oswald and I are the exact same size, not the exact same weight, but we're the same size. Even if you took this rifle apart, the wood stock would be 32 inches long. And with 32 inches long, it could not have been carried into the Texas School Book Depository, as was witnessed by Mr. Frazier. And the reason I say that is because this is 32 inches in length. So if this is the stock of the rifle, assuming it's wrapped in some type of wrapping paper, and it's cupped in a hand, it would not fit under his armpit. And in fact, if you look, probably you would need another 6 inches of arm length in order to have that rifle fit underneath his armpit to walk it in to the Texas School Book Depository. So for those reasons, the rifle did not get into the Texas School Book Depository the morning of November 22nd, 1963, by Lee Harvey Oswald carrying it in. But I believe the rifle walked in another way. Let's take a moment and look at the alleged sniper's nest, the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Up on the board, we have a photo taken from the alleged sniper's nest. Boxes are stacked up, some in one direction, others are stacked up sideways. There is another photo showing boxes stacked a little bit neater, but some on their sides rather than with the bookmarking on the side of the box. And there are also some photos of actually book boxes stacked on their ends. And we can actually take a panoramic view of this whole area. When you look at the scene of the Texas School Book Depository, it really doesn't make much sense that a company that deals in books and a company that also has other companies using their facilities also dealing in books would treat hard covered school books in such a fashion because that could damage their product. The only explanation for books placed and set the way they were around the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository is that it was only a temporary basis. And that might also apply to the alleged sniper's den that Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly was in the corner of the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Of course, the most obvious question would be, why would I make such a claim and how would I know anything about that? The reality is that the Texas School Book Depository Company and the associated companies that were sharing space with the Texas School Book Depository Company were in another building in 1962 and before. They were across the street, and that was located behind the Texas School Book Depository. It's visible here on this overhead. Sometime in 1962, the Texas School Book Depository and the companies that were also sharing space with it decided to leave the Daltex building and to move next door to what actually became known as the Texas School Book Depository. That building at the time was empty, and it was owned by a man named D.H. Byrd. D.H. Byrd was a very wealthy man in Texas, and in fact, a strong supporter of Lyndon Johnson. When funding was being arranged for Johnson's library and museum, one of the largest contributors to that project was D.H. Byrd. Since D.H. Byrd was the landlord of this unoccupied building, he made improvements. One of the things he did was sandblast the front of the building and to put a huge sign up in the front naming the building the Texas School Book Depository. The Warren Commission knew that. And the reason they knew that is because when they took the testimony of one of the witnesses to the Kennedy assassination, a railroad worker who was up on the trestle at the time, named Bowers, Mr. Bowers, he told the Warren Commission that aside from working for the railroad, he also worked on the Texas School Book Depository projects. One was sandblasting and also as a carpenter. That may not be significant, except the floors to the Texas School Book Depository were also being repaired and replaced. Prior to Kennedy's assassination, workers had repaired and replaced the floors on the 5th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. During the week of Kennedy's death, workers had been moving books around on the 6th floor of the School Book Depository as workmen were redoing that floor. How do I know that? Mr. Frazier, the man who brought Lee Harvey Oswald to work on Friday, November 22nd, he testified to it, and he testified that he was aware that there were 1 or 2 Texas School Book Depository employees up until 10 o'clock who had been moving books around on the 6th floor, helping prepare for the floor renovation. Here are some photographs taken by the Dallas Police Department within hours of Kennedy's death. These photographs were taken of the 6th floor of the School Book Depository. It should be clear that there is a difference in floor height in the section where the alleged sniper's nest was. It should also be clear that there is a toolbox with tools on the top of some books and a can which could contain paint or some type of glue, but at least something on the floor. The next photo, of course, showing books all stacked the wrong way on the left side of the photo, shows a pile of wood. Wood for a floor. Boxed in white is another photo showing the repaired floor or replaced floor less than 30 feet away from the alleged sniper's nest. And there is another photo with a line going down the middle showing the repaired floor on the right and the non-repaired floor on the left. The reason the repair work is significant. On the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, on the date and time of Kennedy's death, is it shows, number 1, there were people who could have easily brought in a rifle into the Texas School Book Depository as part of their work tools or as part of their lumber for the renovation project. Additionally, we do not know those people's names. Whether the FBI or someone else attempted to determine who those workers' names were would certainly be important in an investigation when you have part of a potential crime scene and you have people in that area who may have been involved, but you do not know who they are. Whether the Warren Commission, the FBI, or some third party ever tracked the names of these people down is unknown. Worse yet, it certainly explains how two people across the street from the Texas School Book Depository just before the assassination reported to Deputy Sheriff Roger Craig of the Dallas County Sheriff's Office that they saw two men on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository 15 minutes before the assassination with one of the men holding a rifle. Can you imagine that the Warren Commission knew that there were workmen redoing the floors in the Texas School Book Depository at the time that Kennedy was killed? And the Warren Commission knew that the workmen were redoing the floors on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. By all accounts, and by the 26 non-attached volumes in the Warren Commission's report and the Warren Commission itself, there is not one scintilla of discussion or investigation as to who those workmen were on November 22nd, 1963, who were working and repairing the floor in the Texas School Book Depository. I wonder why. See you in the next segment.